My name is Andrew, and I've always been an avid outdoorsman. I've trekked through forests, scaled mountains, and camped in some of the most remote places you can imagine. But the horror I encountered in the backwoods of Oregon was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It all began when I decided to embark on a solo backpacking trip to explore the untouched wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. Armed with my gear and a sense of adventure, I set out on the trailhead of the Whispering Pines Wilderness. The forest was dense and teeming with life as I ventured deeper into the wilderness. Tall, ancient trees reached for the sky, their branches creating a natural canopy that filtered the sunlight. The air was crisp and carried the scent of pine needles. It was paradise for any outdoor enthusiast, or so I thought. I had been hiking for a few days, blissfully disconnected from the outside world, when I first heard the whispers. At first, I brushed them off as the wind rustling through the trees or the babbling of a nearby stream, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct, as if they were emanating from the very heart of the forest. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to follow the eerie voices. They seemed to lead me deeper into the woods, away from the safety of the trail. The further I went, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees grew gnarled and twisted, their bark marred by strange symbols etched into the wood. The once vibrant foliage turned sickly and gray. I couldn't deny the growing unease in the pit of my stomach. I knew I should turn back, but I couldn't resist the compulsion to uncover the source of the whispers. It was as if the forest itself was drawing me in, like a moth to a flame. After what felt like hours, I stumbled upon a clearing, and that's when I saw them, strange, hooded figures standing in a circle. They chanted in an unfamiliar language, their voices carrying an otherworldly, haunting quality. In the center of the circle was a gnarled tree, its branches contorted into grotesque shapes. At its base lay a mound of earth, freshly disturbed. Fear gripped me as I realized what I was witnessing, a ritual of some kind. The figures seemed oblivious to my presence, their attention focused on the tree. But then, as if sensing my intrusion, they all turned to face me simultaneously. Their hoods concealed their faces, leaving only darkness in their stead. I couldn't see their eyes, but I felt their gaze pierce through me, as if they were staring into my very soul. Panic surged, and I turned to flee, but the forest had other plans. The trees seemed to come alive, their branches reaching out to ensnare me. Roots snaked up from the ground, tripping me at every turn. I was trapped, at the mercy of the sinister figures closing in on me. In that moment, I thought I was going to die in that godforsaken place, but just as the hooded figures closed in, a blinding light pierced through the darkness. A group of hikers had stumbled upon the clearing, their flashlights illuminating the eerie scene. The figures dispersed into the shadows, disappearing into the depths of the forest. I was rescued, saved by sheer luck and the unexpected arrival of those hikers. They helped me back to the trail, and we made our way out of the Whispering Pines Wilderness. I reported the incident to the authorities, but like so many others who have encountered the unexplainable in the wilderness, my story was met with skepticism. To this day, I can't forget the whispers, the hooded figures, and the malevolent force that dwells deep within the backwoods of Oregon. The experience left me scarred and changed, a constant reminder that there are places in this world where the natural and the supernatural collide, and the consequences of such encounters are both terrifying and inexplicable. My name is Jake, and this story is a chilling account of the horrors I experienced deep in the backwoods of Kentucky. I was an avid backpacker, always seeking new trails and adventures, but what happened during this particular excursion defies explanation. It was a warm, late summer day when I arrived at the trailhead of the Redwood Hollow Trail in the Daniel Boone National Forest. The lush, dense forest beckoned me with its promises of solitude and natural beauty. Armed with my backpack and a sense of excitement, I began my hike into the wilderness. The trail was serene at first, with sunlight filtering through the canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The air was filled with the symphony of birdsong, and I felt at peace with nature. Little did I know that this tranquility would soon be shattered. As I ventured deeper into the woods, I noticed strange symbols etched onto the tree trunks. They were crude and unsettling, resembling twisted faces contorted in anguish. My unease grew, but I rationalized it as the work of local pranksters or perhaps a group of kids passing through. The afternoon sun began to wane, and I decided to set up camp near a small, crystal-clear creek that meandered through the forest. As I pitched my tent, a feeling of being watched washed over me. I scanned the surroundings but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Dismissing it as my imagination, I lit a campfire and settled in for the night. As darkness fell, The forest came alive with eerie sounds. Strange, guttural cries echoed through the trees, and the symbols on the tree trunks seemed to shimmer in the firelight. My unease grew into a gnawing fear that something was terribly wrong. Unable to shake the feeling of being watched, I grabbed my flashlight and ventured into the woods. The forest was cloaked in an unnatural darkness, and my light barely pierced the veil of shadows. That's when I stumbled upon a gruesome sight: animal carcasses, mutilated and arranged in a bizarre pattern. Surrounded by more of those eerie symbols, the stench of death hung heavy in the air. Panic set in as I realized I was not alone in this desolate place. I heard whispers, barely audible, like distant echoes of madness. The woods seemed to twist and shift, as if the very earth itself was alive and malevolent. I rushed back to my campsite, packed my gear, and decided to make a hasty retreat. But as I retraced my steps, I became hopelessly lost. The once familiar trail had vanished, replaced by an endless labyrinth of trees and darkness. Hours turned into days as I wandered deeper into the backwoods, my supplies dwindling and my sanity hanging by a thread. I encountered bizarre phenomena: a spectral figure that vanished into thin air, strange lights that danced on the periphery of my vision, and disembodied laughter that echoed through the trees. I was trapped in a nightmarish realm, a place where the laws of reality no longer applied. Every step I took seemed to lead me further into madness, and I couldn't escape the feeling that the forest itself was a sentient, malevolent entity. Just when I thought I had reached the brink of despair, I stumbled upon a small, run-down cabin in the heart of the wilderness. It was dilapidated and rotting, yet it offered me a sliver of hope. Desperate, I entered the cabin and found a journal, its pages filled with the ramblings of someone who had experienced the same horrors I had. The final entry read, "They watch from the trees, whispering ancient curses. The forest is alive, and it hungers for our souls." Those words sent a shiver down my spine. With renewed determination, I left the cabin and continued my journey, determined to find my way back to civilization. Miraculously, after what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a familiar trail marker and eventually emerged from the woods, battered and broken. I reported my harrowing experience to the authorities, but they dismissed it as a wilderness hallucination. To this day, no one believes my story, and I can't blame them, but I know the truth, that the backwoods of Kentucky hold secrets beyond comprehension, and I pray that no one else falls victim to the horrors that lurk within those ancient trees. My name is Richard, and I've always been an adventurous soul. I thrive on exploring the unknown, seeking out remote places far removed from civilization. But nothing could have prepared me for the terror I would encounter deep in the backwoods of Maine one fateful summer. It started as a solo camping trip, a chance to disconnect from the world and find solace in the heart of nature. Armed with a backpack filled with essentials, I ventured into the dense forests of Maine. The towering pine trees and the tranquil babbling of a nearby stream promised the perfect escape. Days turned into weeks as I roamed the wilderness, living off the land and finding a strange sense of freedom in my isolation. But as time passed, I began to notice peculiar occurrences, subtle signs that something was amiss in this seemingly pristine wilderness. One evening, while I was nestled in my makeshift campsite, I heard a strange, otherworldly sound. It was a mixture of guttural growls and eerie whispers that seemed to come from all around me. My heart pounded as I realized that I was not alone. Whatever was out there remained hidden in the shadows, its intentions unknown. Nights became a torment as I lay awake, listening to the unnerving cacophony that surrounded me. It was as though the very woods themselves were alive with malevolent energy, taunting me, testing my resolve. One moonless night, I awoke to find my campsite bathed in an unnatural, sickly green glow. My heart raced as I scanned the area, my flashlight revealing nothing out of the ordinary. But then, I saw them, glowing eyes, countless pairs of them, peering at me from the darkness. They seemed to float in the air, disembodied and haunting. Fear paralyzed me as I realized I was being watched by something beyond comprehension. Determined to unravel the mystery, I followed the glow, which led me deeper into the woods. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous, with gnarled roots and dense underbrush conspiring to trip me at every step. I pressed on, driven by a gnawing curiosity and an inexplicable compulsion to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. As I ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, I stumbled upon an ancient, overgrown trail that seemed to beckon me forward. Twisted trees with contorted branches loomed overhead, and the eerie green glow intensified. The air grew cold, and I felt a palpable sense of dread that seemed to emanate from the very earth beneath my feet. Hours passed, and I descended into a surreal, nightmarish landscape. The trail led me to a clearing, where a circle of ancient standing stones stood. In their center, a portal of swirling, malevolent energy pulsed with an unholy light. It was a gateway to another realm, a dimension of unspeakable horrors. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to flee this accursed place, but a sinister force compelled me forward. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched the pulsing portal. The moment our contact was made, a searing pain tore through my mind, and I was thrust into a realm of indescribable terror. In that twisted dimension, I saw nightmarish creatures that defied all reason, grotesque, multi-limbed monstrosities that slithered and writhed in the shadows. Their eyes, the same eerie green as before, fixated on me with a hunger that chilled me to the bone. It was a realm of torment, and I was an intruder in their domain. With every fiber of my being, I fought to return to the world I knew. The pain was excruciating, but my determination was unwavering. Slowly, I pulled myself away from the portal's grasp, back into the earthly realm. I awoke in my campsite, drenched in sweat, with the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. The green glow had vanished, and the eerie sounds had ceased. It was as though the nightmarish dimension had never existed. Terrified and disoriented, I gathered my belongings and fled the backwoods, vowing never to return. The memory of that night still haunts me, a reminder of the unseen terrors that lurk in the most remote corners of the world. My name is Alex, and I survived a night in the backwoods, but I will never forget the horrors I encountered there, and I pray that no one else will ever stumble upon that cursed trail.